I think we're live streaming. Hello, everybody. How you doing tonight? It's good to have you here with us tonight. Those of you listening on Power Faith Radio, well, you will be as soon as I hit this other button. That's the button I was looking for. All right, it's good to have y'all with us tonight. Those of you listening on Power Faith Radio, and if you want to, there's a special link there we've added to the radio. Just hit that if you're watching on some devices. It'll be there, and you can come on over to the YouTube or come on over to the Zoom room if whatever you're watching it on will take Zoom. But anyway, getting back to those of you listening here, those of you watching our live stream on YouTube, we thank you so much for joining us. While you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. You'll be notified every time a new video goes up, and share this video with all your social media platform. And you can find all of our links and all our information on a Simple Walk Facebook page. You can send us an email to outreachnoah@gmail.com. You know, we haven't got an email lately, Terry, and I regenerated it just to make sure it wasn't locked up, and it's not locked up. So even if they just send us an email saying, hi, listened, bye. I mean, you know, it's such, just that right there. So I also want to say tonight, unfortunately, I've got to leave out here in a little bit, but we've got somebody going to be handling the controls. And Terry, I'm going to try to listen on YouTube while I go to work. I'm going to have to go back to work so I can get some rest. Retirement's not working out very well. So anyway,
I can say that. Yeah.
Yeah. When we got in here starting our Zoom room tonight, Veronica said, and I think she just heard that. I don't know. Have you ever said that before, Veronica? Have that ever come to you to say that before? Because that's my dad said that all the time, and it just.
Yep. Huh? I have.
Okay, good deal. So, all right, Terry, if you want to greet those in the Zoom room, Thomas had to step out. He'll be back in a minute, and but if you want to greet those, I'm going to get ready for our Tzedakah time.
All righty. Okay, like Scotty said, if y'all want to come on over to the Zoom room and join us, you don't have to have your camera on. Go to a Simple Walk. The links are there for the Zoom room and the radio station, and the YouTube, I believe, is also there as well. And of course, with Ronald's group in Noah hides in Australia, New Zealand. I'll get it right one of these days. The link, Scotty's got the links posted there as well. And you're, welcome to come in any of these sources and join us in live with us here. So Scotty is, like you said, he's got to leave and go back to work here in just a few minutes, and everybody keep him in prayer so we can learn to keep him tied to his chair.
Yeah.
I mean, what would the Enterprise do if Scotty just beamed off for a while? I mean,
they'd hit an asteroid.
They might hit an asteroid, or they might go in, in reverse or something, because, he won't be there giving it all. She's God Captain. And of course, Ronald's here tonight with us, and Amuela, Veronica, and like Scotty said, Thomas had to jump out for a few minutes to go help someone, and he'll be back here shortly. You about ready, Scotty?
I'm ready.
I didn't say. Did I say Amuela's here?
Amuela's here.
Amuela's here. She bumped out there a little bit. I didn't sing that little bitty picture of her, but she's here.
All right. We appreciate everybody who sends us names for our Tzedakah time, and we're going to get right into it tonight. As always, we give Tzedakah for Terry and I's main teacher, Pesach and Shira Sherbo. They live in Sfat, Israel. And then we're giving Tzedakah tonight for Kay Simmons. Kay Simmons, we're giving Tzedakah. And Janice Brandon, how is she doing? Ronald, have you heard anything lately?
Yeah, I was had a good chat with her last Sunday. Yeah, she's still struggling a lot with pain and sleep patterns, but she seems a bit more cheerful, but she's still struggling with the recovery. Yeah.
All right. Going to keep her on our Sadaka list. Also, on our Sadaka list is Wendell and Mary Parsons, and Jeremy Kibbe, and we're just giving Thanksgiving. Jeremy he's just really getting excited about everything happening in his life, and so we've got Thanksgiving Sadaka for Jeremy Kibbe. Also, we're giving Sadaka tonight for Nadine Akins, and she's doing well in her new apartment, and just every time we see her, it's just astonishing. So we're giving Thanksgiving Sadaka for her. I believe we'll just do it that way. And we're giving Sadaka tonight for Ronald Dickman and his sister. I'm going to let you. I think if I hear it enough, Ronald, I might be able to say it. Don't hold me to that. But how's your sister doing, and how are you doing?
My sister is still struggling. Nothing conclusive again, and they're not going to do anything till October, and they're going to rerun the whole test program from scratch. So she's really in anxiety about that, because if it is what's suspected, then she's missing out on so many months of going into treatment.
Yeah.
Me, okay. I've got appointments on the 2nd and the 9th of July, so I'm finally going to get my scan, and but I'm feeling good mostly, so not a problem. I'm just pleased that I'm getting some advancement.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Also on our Sadaka list, somebody always sends $1 in for Amuela Asher. Amuela, that's your dollar going in Sadaka. They also send one in for Veronica Port, and they send one in for Thomas Schaus. And then also we want to remember Joanna Flynn Wakehuff. She's going in for surgery. I believe it was Monday, isn't it? This coming
16th, the 16th,
the 16th, and so we want to remember her the rest of this week, and then also Warwick Marshall. How's Warwick doing, Ronald? Have you got to talk to him?
No, I haven't been able to get in touch with him for a while. When I reach out, or he reaches out to me, we don't cross paths, and so it's a bit in limbo at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to have him on our Sadaka list for a little bit. Excuse me. And then on our blessed memory Sadaka list tonight, we have a Timmy Woodby. We ran into his wife earlier this week, and she asked that we remember Timmy Woodby. If you would help us in our prayers tonight. Hear our voice, Adonai, our God, Father of mercy. We ask that you have compassion on us and accept our prayer with compassion and favor. For you are a God who hears prayers and supplications. You are our King. Do not send us away empty-handed. Favor us and answer us and listen to our prayers. Amen. All right, Terry, I can't put you on speaker view, but Ronald can put you on speaker view, and we're going to turn it over to you.
All righty. Tonight, well, I'm sitting here looking at my notes again. I was about to jump right into it. Oh, this is another packed portion that we're going to cover tonight. Tonight we're only going to cover verses 27 and 28. And that verse 27 is, God created man in his image, worthy of himself. He created him in the form worthy of God. He created them male and female. And to them, he says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Exercise your dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, of the sky, and every living creature that moves upon the earth. And these are the two that we're going to cover tonight. there's some really good information here for us this evening. Scotty, I know you got to leave here in just a few minutes, but before you get gone, is there anything from the last time that you can remember?
No, there was some conversations of everybody, everybody in the formulation and the building of everything. They can't wait till you get to the part where let us make man. So that's going to be.
We already covered that a couple of classes.
Well, what they're getting to is in Adam and Eve. They're getting to that over there where you're going to start on the you're not in the second chapter, right?
No, well, this is
okay.
Next week, God willing, we'll finish up the first chapter. Tonight we're going to do verses 27, 28. Next week should be 29 through 31, 30, 31. And that'll finish up the first chapter.
You had mentioned a couple things when you were going through that about getting over into the creation of Adam and Eve, and you mentioned some of that. So a lot of them are anticipating, looking forward, ready with taking notes and asking questions on when you get to that part. So
okay,
just fulfill you in with that before right now. So okay,
all right,
go ahead.
Okay, in verse 27, where it says, "And God created man in His image," or in like Rabbi Hirsch puts it, in an image worthy of Himself. Rabbi Hirsch is talking about, says, man's physical frame. And we're picking up, still talking about, the worthiness and the value of man, even just in his body. Man's physical frame is worthy of God and of man's godly purpose. He's worthy of God. Our physical frame is worthy of God, and He's worthy of the godly purpose that He has placed upon us as His creation. The Torah thus teaches us to recognize and to appreciate the divine dignity of the human body, the divine dignity of the human body. Indeed, the Torah's purpose is not only to hallow the spirit, but also to hallow the body. This is the basis of all human morality. And like Scotty was saying, when we get to chapter 2, especially in verse 16 and stuff, we're going to be getting into man, when God begins to train man in his moral training. So the human body, with all of its drives and energies, was created in the form worthy of God. And man's duty is to sanctify his body in keeping with his godly purpose. There is a lot of information that is given to us, not only by Rabbi Hirsch, but many of the other Torah sages and Torah teachers of Israel, talking about the duty to sanctify the body, to keep it in it for a godly purpose, trying to stay healthy so that you can, when you are sick, and we all get sick, but when you're sick, you can't serve God very well because, one, you're in this situation where you're needing His help to overcome an illness and overcome a sickness. And sometimes there are sicknesses that comes upon us that is, we didn't have anything to do with it. It just happens, in just the nature of the world, the nature of mankind. But then there are illnesses that we can bring upon ourselves for the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat our bodies. I know we all don't eat and drink, the best and the most properly, but there are things that we can do. It's like in my job, I went from where I was doing outbound shipping, where I was walking anywhere from 18 to 22,000 steps a day, to now my watch is messed up, but I probably don't even hit 8,000 steps a day now, because of the nature of my job now. I'm up at the parts counter, and so I'm sitting a lot. So I have to try to remember to get up and to walk around, because you're just sitting there at the computer all day. And if I'm back in the back on the part, with the text, it's easy. I'm up getting parts, moving around, doing this, and there's a lot more movement. But if I'm up at the retail counter, you're sitting there not only by the computer, but by the phone and by the door when people walk in. So you just really don't have that much opportunity to get up and walk around. And I've noticed in becoming more setting a lot now in my job, how much it's caused me to gain some weight. I get tired real easy. And so I'm trying to remember, okay, on the weekends when I get home, and here lately I've been wanting to do it during the week, but it's been raining so much here, just to get out and just walk around in the yard. And so God gives us, as Rabbi Hirsch puts it here, he says we need to appreciate the divine dignity of our human body that he has given us. He goes on, he says, nothing undermines morality more than the erroneous conception that splits the human soul. This view recognizes the divine dignity of the spirit and instructs the spirit to elevate itself higher to higher worlds, but allows the body unbridled license to indulge in animal-like smut of sensuality. And to great men of intellect, this view even grants special immunity in the moral degeneration of the body. That's a viewpoint that some have, that they split the human soul. Rabbi Hirsch says, not so is the dignity of man as depicted by God's Torah. Sanctification of the body and the preservation of man's divine form are a cornerstone of all moral refinement and condition for all spiritual ennoblement. And the higher the spirit seeks to ascend, the greater the demand for the body to be sanctified. And what he's talking about here is that when we, the moral refinement and the condition of all spiritual ennoblement. I've noticed that when we all have periods, I hope we do have periods of this, and we probably desire more moral refinement when we start working on ourselves to try to be a better person, whether it's working on our speech, working on our actions. All of this not only elevates the spirit, but it also elevates the body as well. And as we elevate our soul toward God, we should be elevating our body as well, and trying to become the better person in soul and spirit to be able to carry out God's purpose for our lives and the reason why he created us. Verse 27 goes on and says, and he created them male and female. And this is going to get interesting in this 27 and 28. It says, although all living creatures were created male and female, the scripture mentions this only in the creation of man. The Torah thus teaches us that both sexes were created directly by God and equal in his image. Male and female are both equal in the image of God. One is not greater than the other. We are equal in the image of God. This is specifically emphasizes in the verse by the translation of the singular and the plural word that is translated as them. Created in the image of God is one, and was created male and female. Only both sexes together embody the concept of Adam. Say that again. Only both sexes together male and female together, embodies the concept of Adam that we talked about, a couple weeks ago. The word here where it says man derives from the root of a word that means to remember. And it is related to a word in woman that is derived from another word, a root word of the word that means determined to intend. The word woman then is the intended one, and the male preserves in the fastness of his heart the divine human tradition. He transmits the culture. He is the chain of tradition of the human species. Woman attains her intended purpose when she accompanies the man and joins in his effort. By doing so, she finds that the sphere within which she will make her own contribution and fulfillment to human destiny. The man chooses his own calling, but the woman receives her calling when she joins her husband. Now I'm going to go to his collected writings. We're going to look at this verse here and say this statement in verse 28, where God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it." We're going to look at those 4 words. We're going to learn something new tonight and what all of that means: to be fruitful, to multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. In his collected writings, he breaks this passage down. That's one thing I love about Rabbi Hirsch. He breaks all these down. Like he said, he goes on, the male chooses his vocation and thus creates a position for himself. The female, on the other hand, receives her vocation and position in life by entering into union with the man and identifying with the vocation that he has chosen and the position that he has created within for himself. He goes on, he says, consider the momentous words with which the Father of all mankind, the educator and guardian for the course of human history, has proclaimed the ultimate healing and ingathering of mankind from all their experiments in history making. In Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 21, the Creator says, through the prophet, "It is God who created the new thing on earth. Woman encircles man." The male must strive to attain a vocation and a position for himself as defined by his specific lot in this world, through which he is to make his personal contribution and fulfillment in the purpose common to all mankind. But as he struggles for success and achievement, he runs the danger of losing himself. He may come to regard his endeavors, with which, in fact, are only a means toward an end, as the end in themselves and as all-absorbing purpose in life, forgetting his purpose, his larger purpose, his task as a human being, which all his material achievements are only meant to help him accomplish. Indeed, he may in time come to subordinate and to sacrifice the true human aspects of his life for these endeavors. And we've known people who've done that. We've all probably been guilty of that, where we've given ourselves to our jobs and our occupations to the point where we've neglected not only our life, but the life of our families. This error probably accounts for virtually all the errors and the delusions that have marked the history of mankind. It is the woman who can lead the man back to his true humanity. The enigma of history can be solved when one considers the dominant role of the female. The male is encircled, i.e., he is kept within the sphere of purely human existence and activity by the female, who has been entrusted with safeguarding his nobler aspects of life. We've probably never considered the woman or the wife to be that important, because a lot of religious and cultural traditions has belittled the wife, belittled the woman. And yet it is the woman, when she joins her husband in this joining, which we're going to see more when we get over into chapter 2 also, where when a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife. We'll get into that verse because he breaks that verse down as well. But we can see here how important that the woman is to the man's life. She is the one who keeps him in line with his humanity when she joins in with him. Now he starts to break down this passage where it says, in verse 28, where he is discussing for them to be fruitful, to multiply, and to fill the earth. And you might want to take some notes on this if you have some pen and paper. He goes on, he says, in the case of man, however, the blessing is separated from the fulfillment of granting of the capacity. It says, in the case of man, however, I held that up. The blessing is separated from the fulfillment. The granting of the capacity is separated from the utilization for God's purpose. The fulfillment is required of man as a duty, and he is to carry it out of his own free will. The natural act of the animals is transformed. In the case of man, is an act of moral freedom. What he's talking about here, to be free, to be fruitful and to multiply, is a moral freedom. For the animals, it's not a moral freedom. It's an instinct for them to be fruitful and to multiply, because we do this upon our own free will. He gets into the 4 sections here of fruitful, multiply, fill, and subdue the earth. The first one, be fruitful. He says, the male can revert from being merely a prestigious public figure to a pristine state of the human being in accordance with the will of God. That is the reason why the blessing and the vocation expressed in the words to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill, and subdue was accorded equally to both male and female. This statement, to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, and to subdue it, was given equally to male and female. These 4 words sums up the purpose of the human species and creates a moral basis for the institution of marriage, family, the state, and personal property. I'll say that. I'm going to say this again if you want to write that down. These 4 words, verse 28, sums up the purpose of the human species. These 4 words creates a moral basis for the institution of marriage, family, the state, and personal property. We're going to look at these together. To be fruitful refers to marriage. If you write notes in your Bible or out to the side right there, you can underline that word right there that says fruitful. It's peri, is in Hebrew. refers to marriage. The union of the two sexes for the purpose of begetting offspring that will continue the noblest and the best of all godly and human qualities of their parents. He says, so the noblest traits of godliness and humanness of the father and the mother unite to produce an independent human germ. They come together and produce an independent, another person in whom they are to bestow all of godly and human qualities upon this new addition. He said, resembles their parents not only in the body, but also in spirit. When we multiply as we are supposed to do as husband and wife, our offspring is to resemble us as we're supposed to resemble our parents, not only in body, but also in spirit. The male quality of the father directing and shaping the destiny of the family, and the female quality of the mother is receiving and accepting the directions given to her, will unite in their children to form a new individual, thus contributing to the endless variety of human personalities. Now you may want to underline or circle the word multiply. You can write out in your margins or in your notes the word multiply here. Refers to the family. You are to nurture and educate the offspring you have produced so that they may grow up in your image, replicating the best that is within your own selves. Without care, without proper education, your offspring will become morally stunned and will run wild. Look at what's going on in a lot of societies around the world that have parentless offspring. Even if the mother and father are there, the mother and father could still be in the home and still be parentless. Without care, without proper education, your offspring will become morally stunned and will run wild. The one-time act of giving birth to a child is not sufficient to fulfill the commandment of multiplying the human species or to replicate the parents on earth. This endeavor requires a continuing process of creation on the part of both parents, a constant united effort of the father and the mother in the care and the rearing and the education of the child. This effort is nothing else than the continuing transference of the noblest and the best of the godly and human qualities of the parents to their children, with the result that the parents are then truly replicated in their offspring. Now, the word that is translated fill, circle, underline that one, and write out to the side. The word fill here refers to society, to the state. The fact that every married couple is told to fill the earth, see to it that the earth becomes and remains filled with the noblest of contents. and abundance of human beings implies that the parents' tasks extends beyond the intimate sphere of their own home. Every parent is required to contribute his or her share in the establishment and the preservation of as many human families on earth as possible. Every parent is responsible for the survival and the prosperity of all human beings. So now when we see fill the earth, God is giving us an instruction to go beyond our homes, beyond ourselves, and to build a society. The word fill means to form a society. A society is. Every couple is obligated to make its contribution so that the earth is full of human beings. Only when the earth is full of human beings will its purpose be attained completely. In other words, a person does not fulfill his obligation by establishing his own home. Rather, each individual is obligated to lend his hand to establish in the establishing of many other homes. Thus, the individual is obligated in regarding the welfare of society. So far what we have here with the word be fruitful is marriage, multiply, family. Now the word fill is society. God is giving us an instruction on building humanity on the earth here in the beginning in Genesis. And there's so much in Genesis that's not being taught, not being learned about this obligation of the human being to join together a male and a female, to have a marriage, to multiply into a family. And then to fill the earth means to get involved as just outside the family, but inside the community, outside the home, making a contribution, a godly contribution to society. And then the last word, the fourth word here, that is translated as subdue. This is the divine commandment that justifies and hallows the acquisition of personal property. So you can write out the side of this, the word subdue, you can underline it and write out personal property. It says, man is commanded to master the earth and subdue it. His task is to acquire the products of the earth and to transform them so that they become fit for his purpose. Acquisition of property is a prerequisite for the tasks of the home and society. Property serves as the instrument for which the home and the society achieve their aims. Thus, the acquisition of property becomes a moral duty. And we're going to see that more when we start getting into chapter 2. Because our moral duties on the earth, when we start acquiring properties, building marriages and building societies, we start seeing the other aspects of God's commandments, God's laws that we talk about come into effect. This has been a slow process from the very beginning, from verse 1. I wrote this down the other day as I was meditating on this on the way to work. Now, and I wrote this as in the beginning of the creation, we find the creator that brings the elements and the ingredients of all existence into existence out of nothingness. And as we progress forward, we see the creator creating life, freedom, and freedom of movement. First, the plant. They are free to develop among their own kind. but they remain stationary and not free to move. Then he brings upon the creatures of the sea and the creatures of the air and the land. They're free to grow in their kind, but given a freedom of movement. Only within their given instincts. The creatures of the sea, the air, and the land can only move within what instincts that God gave them to live by. Then he came to man. Man is given freedom of movement. But this is a new freedom of movement, a new kind of freedom that had not existed yet. In this freedom of movement, it is a movement with a choice. It is a movement with a choice when it comes to man. He's free to go and to do, but his movements are based on choices and on decisions on what he's going to do, whether they're going to be right, whether they're going to be wrong. He has the freedom to marry, freedom to multiply upon his own free will and choice. Animals don't have that. We all know that, female animals will go in what we call heat that will draw the males in so they can multiply. But with man, it's a freedom of movement, but the movement is a movement of choice. Then we move that movement of choice not only from marriage and multiplying, having children and growing a family, growing a home. Now we're also growing society. Then there are more choices that are made, more decisions that are being made. And there has to be guidelines as man grows in his freedom of movement and his freedom of choice. There are rules to live by. And that's what we're going to be learning as we study Genesis. All this was laid out in the beginning. Rabbi Hirsch goes on and says, the deed of subdue, however, is written here last, which implies a limitation. There is no moral value to property unless it is devoted to a home and society. It is the person's duty to acquire materials and assets in order to build a home and to further to build a society. He should not build a home and support the society in order to increase his assets and his wealth. The deeds of marriage and family is given at once to both sexes. They are to collaborate in harmony so as to fulfill the mission of man. Nevertheless, before establishing a home, he must first acquire material assets in his duty, subduing the earth so that to further man's aims is to primarily to incumbent upon him only the male. He goes on and says, God claims all of the life and all the services for the fulfillment of man's mission as Adam, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. Adam is a kind. It is a species. It's not a name. This applies first and foremost to family and communal life. So initially, Rabbi Hirsch says, the word of God in Genesis 1:27 introduces man and woman together in the work of creation as human beings. Both of them created equally in the image of God and designated as his representatives on earth, their positions and their tasks being signed to both of them together. He says, man's mission shall be carried out everywhere, and man's likeness to God shall not be lost on any person. So as we've seen here in verses 27 and 28 tonight, that we see that we are created in the image of God, meaning that the framework of man's body is worthy of God's. And we're worthy of the purpose that God has placed within man. Our body, he says we should appreciate the divine dignity of our human body. And keeping ourselves in good shape is our duty, is to take care of our body in keeping with godly purpose. He created both male and female. He created us directly, male and female, by God, and we are equally, man and woman are equally in God's image. And then we have the 4 areas: to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, and subdue it. We're to sanctify marriage. Marriage shall become a family. Family shall become a society. And subduing is the acquisition of property for that marriage, for that family, and for that society. All this is given to us here in the first chapter of Genesis. Creation of man and his purpose. Creation of Adam, which is both sexes. The creation of Adam is male and female. In the image of God. And we take that image of God into marriage, into family, into society. And that image of God also reflects in how we morally acquire property and how we relate our lives with other people's property, which again, we're going to be seeing that as we get into the second chapter. Hey, Ronald. Any questions over on YouTube or anything, or any discussions?
No, nothing. But I like, the breakdown, giving the breakdown of what you've just said as to what each section stands for.
That's what I love about Hirsch. Like I said, we'll get in. I mean, we're going to see that in multiple places as we continue our journey into Genesis. That's what I love. He's my go-to in learning, because even in the studies that I've been doing for learning for the classes, there's things that I have come across that I hadn't, in the past.
And all this is aimed at creating a cohesive society, doing the right thing by God, and bringing in a society that God would be happy to come and dwell with.
Right. I mean, all this up, this builds and builds. And when we especially get up into chapter 9 with Noah and stuff, the things we learned in chapter 4 with Cain and Abel. I look forward to all these sections here in Genesis that we have so much to learn from for our, if that has benefit for our lives today. Next week, God willing, we'll conclude the first chapter.
Right. It's all so very interesting. There's so much to draw out of, you could say, a minimal amount of words, but with great depth to the understanding of where it's leading us. And
that's the reason I wanted, folks, in your Bible and your notes, write down those 4 words, be fruitful, be multiply, be fruitful, fill the earth, subdue, marriage, family, society, and acquisition of property. All the aspects of human life.
yes.
And that we will take with us through the rest of our journey. because from everywhere, from this point forward, we're going to learn about how our relationship with God and our relationship with man, 7 laws, all of this, the Derek Eric's that we're going to learn about, the law of the world, the land that is naturally there in every human being. We're going to see how all of this affects these 4 words. From this point on, these 4 words becomes the fullness of man's life and duty on the earth. His life with God and his life with man is affected by these 4 words.
Very, very good. Much appreciate the work you put into your studies, Terry. Being able to relate it to us in a simplified way that's easy to understand and give us the direction of where we should be heading, what we should be considering, how we live, and be a justified society that has compassion, empathy, wanting to move forward in a positive manner and not being divisive and creating a negative world.
Right. I mean, we can look at what's going on in our society, whether it's here in America, Canada, where Amwell is at, Australia, where you're at, all over the country where Veronica's been, you know, whether it be in Peru or Italy or Europe or Asia. As we can see here, the Creator has given a divine blueprint for humanity. And if you've seen the blueprint, a builder's blueprint of a house, it's layered. You know, you have your outside drawing that shows, you know, the finished picture and all, but then when you start opening this blueprint up, which I had, 3 years of drafting in high school. That's one of the things I enjoyed when we got into architectural drafting. Then you're laying out the foundation, you're laying out the walls, you're laying out the electrical, you're laying out the plumbing. It's a blueprint, and when it's done, a builder can take this blueprint and he can take and build a house from that. It's all set up according to the codes. All the electrical drawings on that drawing meets electrical code. All the building, the walls, the roof structures, all meets the codes to build a safe house. And this is what we're seeing here. The Creator is building a house. Matter of fact, that's interesting that the first word of the Torah is Bereshit. The first letter of Bereshit is the letter Bet, which is also the Hebrew letter or Hebrew word for house. And the letter itself represents a house. And so God has been building this house from verse 1. Now, the inhabitants of this house is come up here in verses 27 and 28, and let us make man. Make Adam. Let us make Adam, male and female. Now he's got the inhabitants of the house. Now in verse 27 and verse 28, we're getting the instructions within the blueprint of the operation of this Adam and how he is to operate and how he's to live. And those 4 words will continue with Adam all the way through to the end.
Exactly. And Scotty's just put message on YouTube saying when you build a house according to the blueprints, every part of the house helps and accents the other parts. When it's built according to the plans, everything works correctly.
Exactly. It's like when I was doing heating and air, we had, especially when we was in existing houses that didn't have heating and air, and they were existing houses, especially like in the 70s or so. There are parts of the house that you were permitted to cut, and there are parts that you were not permitted to cut because of structural integrity. And in a new house that I was working on, I learned really interesting. This had an attic that you could walk around in. Of course, it wasn't a finished attic, but it had a real high. It was a very expensive house, and it was real high pitched roof. And it had a couple of tuba tins that were nailed together that went from the point all the way down to a board, one of the joists. And the contractor was sharing with us, because at the time he said, be careful when we were up there working, because that board wasn't completely 100% finished installed yet, because there was other things that needed to go on. But that board projected the weight of that house, or weight of that roof, which was huge. Imagine with all the shingles that's going to be on it in the future, would take the weight and send that weight all the way down that board into this board, and that board would go all the way down this wall and all the way down to a pillar under the house that supported the roof. So everything has its place and its purpose, no matter even if it looks simple. And some people can look at some of these things here in Genesis, oh, that's just simple, but it's very important. Some of these simple things is supporting the weight of the building, supporting the weight of the family, supporting the weight of the society. And you remove any of these things, the family will fall apart, then society will fall apart.
Which is what we're seeing at the present time.
Yeah. So I was really looking forward to tonight, because I was looking forward to getting into these 4 words when I, learned about them. And he talks about them in his Humish here in Genesis, and then in his collected writings, which I have 9 volumes of his collected writings that he had. There's places in here that he'll have a little bit of information, and he'll give the information. You need to go to volume 8, page 86, to get the full detail. And I get in here, and my desk is covered with books, and I'm like, then I got to leave and go to work. I get up in the mornings at 5 o'clock, and time I'm in here by 5:30, I'm hitting my books, and I get to where I don't want, work gets in the way of my fun. My fun is when my desk is covered in books. All right, Ronald, if there's not anything coming in.
I was just going to say the same thing.
Right at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so done well, and a mountain full of information in understanding a few sentences.
Yeah, just amazing. Just a sentence that we read over hundreds and hundreds of times. I've read, how many times we've all of us read Genesis, and we've read, God blessed them and said, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. But when you get into the Hebrew and understand what that Hebrew is telling us, it's more than just a translation.
Exactly. It's the foundation of building the life you should be doing.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Be fruitful and multiply is not a commandment, right? And
No.
why not?
No, it's when you read it, it says he blessed them and said. It doesn't have the word zav, command, like we will see in Genesis 2:16, where when he commanded man. This wasn't a commandment.
So it's a blessing.
It's the way I read it. and everything. When you read, let me go back over here. He says in verse 28, and he says, hold on. And it says, in the Hebrew, and it says, Vayabarakah Atem Elohim Vayomer Lachem, where it says, and basically it says here in English, God blessed them and said, Vayomer, he said to them, be fruitful. And so the word sav or command, and like I'll just flip over here real quick to when we get to chapter 2, verse 16. In the English, it says, and God commanded man. Here it says, Va'asav Hashem Elohim al Adam. God commanded. So we don't see the word command here in this passage.
Okay.
So that's, as far as when I read the Hebrew and I see that, it's not a commandment just specifically. Of course, we're going to get on into the other, I think it's in verse 8 of chapter 2, where Adam says that a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife. Which that's why Adam says there's not a commandment of marriage that's upon us. But when we see that God's society requires it, it's can become, I guess, maybe it's a little strong to say a non-commanded obligation, but for society to produce itself the way God wants it to, it requires a man to leave his mother and father's house and cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh, which we'll get, like I said, we'll get more into that when we hit verse 8 on that. But if a person, not everybody's not meant to be married. There are some people that, have tried marriage, it just didn't work out, and that just happens. So it's not a sin. If it was a commandment, it would be a sin not to get married, but it's not a sin not to get married.
Or have kids.
Or have kids.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
But if you're going to get married, then God has a plan for that. But that still doesn't take an unmarried person outside of the scope of God's plan for society. Because all humans, even though a woman may not marry or a man may not marry, they're still both created in the image of God, and they carry that image with them in society.
They still have a place in society.
They have a place in society and a duty to the society. It's just if you decide to get married, then God has, this is what I want you to do. If you don't get married, then there's things that you need to do and don't do. So everybody's involved in God's economy.
Everybody has their place.
Everybody has their place and their purpose.
Okay, so shall we wrap it up there, Terry?
We can wrap it up.
And God willing, we'll be back next week.
And again, anyone's got any questions? Scotty had to work tonight and everything, but if you've got any questions, comments about tonight's class, you can send them over to us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. That's our email address. And feel free to send us any communications that direction. And And like I said, even with questions maybe not pertaining tonight that you've thought of that you would like us to discuss, from time to time we do a Q&A section where we take some questions that we've gathered up and just have a couple of classes where we're discussing questions. So if you have questions that's not pertaining tonight, you can still send them to us at outreachnoah@gmail.com. And because Scotty and I are planning on taking a break from this for a week or two and do some Q&As where we are discussing questions from y'all folks.
Good. I enjoy the Q&As.
They're fun.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
sometimes Scotty doesn't tell me what they are. He waits till we get here. I'll ask him, okay, what do I need to get prepared for? I'll let you know. Then he does on air. And he's probably over in that house where he's working out laughing.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody who listened in on Power Faith Radio, everybody who joined us in the Zoom room, and everybody who's watching on YouTube. And Terry later will be uploading the YouTube video again, so if you need to or want to, you can revisit that on Outreach Noah's YouTube channel. And everybody have a good evening and a good week. And as we said, God willing, we will see you all next week.
Yes.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, all.